Hi church, it's so good to be with you today of sorts to maybe not for you having to put up with seeing me, but we hope that you're doing okay. We really miss you. We can't wait until we're back together again, worshipping together. We hope that you're all doing okay, and this morning I just wanted to spend a couple of minutes sharing a couple of things that God spoke to me about this morning through one of my most favourite psalms, one of my kind of go-to psalms when the pressure of life is too much, when the boys were poorly, our youngest were poorly and in hospital. This was one of the psalms that really sustained me through that difficult time, and I felt God has been speaking to me a lot about extremes, and I think probably most of us can relate to extremes at the moment, extremes of emotions and extremes of situations, and they're probably quite different for different people. For me, as someone who's quite an introverted extrovert, I love being around people, but I'm aware I need a lot of time to myself. And when you're stuck in a house with 5 other people all the time and there's no way to escape that feels like a real pressure pot, and that's a real extreme emotion and a frustration for me at times. And yet there'll be some of you that are facing the opposite of that, who are facing extreme loneliness, who are having to self-isolate on your own for different reasons, and it might be a financial reason as well. It might be extreme financial difficulties or worries about work that actually many of us and probably all of us in some ways will be facing extremes. And in these psalms we see that David and the other psalmists are not unfamiliar with extreme emotions, extreme situations, and Psalm 18 is no exception to that. It talks about David having been rescued from his enemies, rescued from King Saul, and giving thanks to God for that. And it talks about him being, I'm just going to pick random bits, it's quite a long psalm, I'm not going to read it, I'm just going to pick random bits. So it talks about God being our strength, and it talks about God being our rock, our fortress and our deliverer, our refuge, our shield in times of trouble. And Tom has touched on that briefly in a talk he did a couple of weeks ago as well, which is well worth a listen if you haven't done. That God is always with us, that we can take refuge in him. Sometimes you might only find that you can take refuge in your house if you're like us in the toilet for 2 minutes peace, but actually even in the busyness, even in your loneliness, even in your worry and your frustration or your upset, that we can take refuge in God. In verse 6 it goes on to say, in my distress I called upon the Lord, to my God I cried for help. From his temple he heard my voice, and my cry to him reached his ears. And actually that Hebrew word for heard doesn't just mean like when we listen to our children with half an ear because they're telling you another joke that doesn't actually make sense. It's God saying, I listen to you. It's not a passive listening, it's an attentive listen. I understand what you're saying. I've given attention to you. I've heard you. God is interested in what you're saying. He's interested in sharing those frustrations and sharing those disappointments that you might face. And yet it goes on again further still into verse 19, and it says, he brought me out into a broad place. He rescued me because he delighted in me. He rescues us and brings us to a place of safety, a place of high ground, a dry place, a safe place where we can know his peace through difficult circumstances and frustrations. And further on in verse, I'm just going to read verses 30 to verses 34. This God, his way is perfect. The word of the Lord proves true. He's a shield to all those who take refuge in him. For who is God but the Lord? And who is a rock except our God? The God who equipped me with strength and made my way blameless. He made my feet like the feet of a deer and sets me secure on the heights. He trains my hands for war so that my arms can bend a bow of bronze. So we don't just hide in God's presence and take refuge, and there is times where that's appropriate, but actually I felt that the word God would give us this morning is that he trains my hands for war so that my arms can bend a bow of bronze. That actually God wants to use this time and use this season for us as a church and for each of us for an opportunity actually. that there will be this will be a season where many of us have said, you know, it's an opportunity for more time to reflect and more time to pray. But actually, God wants to set our feet secure on the heights. He wants to set us in Him. He wants to equip us as well at this time. That might be equipping us for the future, but actually what He wants to do is train our hands and set us ready for war. And by that I mean He wants to give us opportunities to do things in different ways. And so I just wanted to encourage you today, be praying for those opportunities, be praying for ways that you can honour God, ways that you can serve God, ways that you can be used by Him. That might be practical things with neighbours or friends, but actually seek God where you can and find new and creative ways to do that as well. For us that looks hugely different, because I love meeting with God outside in nature. I love meeting with God on my own. That's how I most meet with God, and all of that has been stripped away from me. And so for me it's been a real time of trying to adjust to really meeting with God amidst the chaos, amid shouting children, all those things. And yet I've had some amazing times of knowing God's peace, of knowing His presence and His joy and His Him being in control of this situation. So be looking for those opportunities and those times where you can really just seek God in new ways, in different ways through this. And just it's almost like another bow to your arrow to your bow. It's like another thing that God wants to do with us in this season. So take care, stay well, stay at home. We hope to see you soon, and lots of love. Bye.